about the growing economic influence of China in the Caribbean. And Dr. LMadu, I might add, you're giving us some extraordinary information and recalling to mind some of the old controversies that have been going on for a long time, but I now think that they are in a new light. Let's continue our discussion in reference to that.
So the diplomatic war, between the People's Republic of China, which is now the legitimate government of China, and the Republic of Taiwan, which used to be recognized as the legitimate government of China, continues. And this war, has gone to Africa, and now it's shifted to the Caribbean. And that's one of the reasons why you see the Chinese moving into the Caribbean and expending so much money. Most of the Caribbean countries recognize Taiwan as the legitimate government of China. So what the Republic of China is doing now is saying, hey, if you still want to recognize Taiwan as a legitimate government, no money. But if you de-recognize the Republic of China and recognize us as, the legitimate government, hey, there'll be a whole lot of money coming in. So what happened? A lot of, countries in the Caribbean who had diplomatic relations with Taiwan broke off diplomatic relations and recognized the People's Republic of China as a legitimate government. So China said, okay, you recognize us, here is the money. Okay? Countries like Haiti, which has had a long-term relationship, with Taiwan, said, no, we're not going to de-recognize Taiwan. We'll still recognize Taiwan, but if you want to do business with us, you're welcome. So in a way, even though the Chinese don't like it, they are giving a little here and there to Haiti.
Just to keep them interested.
Exactly, to keep them interested. And few other countries, one or two other countries, like St. Kitts, still had a relationship with Taiwan, instead of the other China. But they're getting some little here and there, also from China, to make them think again about if they're going to continue.
Reevaluate their situation in reference to two Chinas, so to speak.
Two Chinas. That's right. So that majority of the countries now in the Caribbean recognize the People's Republic of China, because they're pumping in all this money to boost the investment. So they're not going to be bringing that money if you don't recognize them. See? So that's the key, that's the number one reason, why the Chinese want to make sure Taiwan doesn't have influence there to get rid of them and, have more influence in that part of the world. Now, secondly, we can talk of Chinese, expansion. This is the Chinese century, of economic power, military power. So now China is trying to throw its weight around, say, yes, we have money and we want to use it to help other countries. And that's competition. They're competing with, the United States, Britain, and other colonial powers. Now, third, a lot of these countries in the Caribbean, in Africa, when they ask themselves, they say, well, are we better off getting money from China? Are we better getting money from the United States or Britain also? Well, most of them say, well, China has never been a colonial power here. Okay, they've never colonized us. They've not done anything wrong here. So, we don't have any problem with them.
Grievance is really against China
exactly,
from the colonial past.
That's correct. They were not part of the colonial system here. We have no grievances. But what is happening now is that a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, if they buy up all these things, we will become slaves to them. Okay, we'll be owing them, everything belongs to them.
And if they're bringing the workers there, they're doing the building there, and they have more workers there on a project than the population itself, and small population. And how long would it take the Chinese to outnumber people with 850,000 people in the population?
That's got 83,000.
83,000 people in the population.
Exactly. Dominica is 83,000 people, not even up to the population of North Nashville.
They build 2 casinos there, send their workers there.
That's correct.
And they've imported more than more of their people than are. They're literally taking over in a real colonial kind of sense,
yes,
control.
If you look
the control of the land.
Exactly. If you look at it that way, and that's the way it looks like. Or example, a country like St. Kitts and Nevis with 50,000 people. If you have 20,000 Chinese workers in that country, they run the country.
They have to.
Exactly.
They're paying all the bills.
They're paying all the bills and everything else. So indirectly, they will have influence on the political process. You know.
Certainly.
Okay. Yes. So
great influence.
That's
there.
correct. They have a whole lot of influence in those little countries because of their population and money. So in a way, they might be running those countries from behind, because since they own politicians with all this money, you know, you have to give them what they want.
But they're going to literally be able to outnumber the population. China, after all, it has the greatest number of people in the world.
That's correct.
And so by sending, it can send only, what, 2%
That's correct.
of its population into the Caribbean, and it will be the largest ethnic group in the entire Caribbean.
That's correct. And that's something to, you know, the point you made here is something to think about. Yes, because of the population of those countries, a few thousand Chinese can take over the whole country.
Very easily.
Easily, without anybody thinking about it. Because since they control everything, you know, they control all the casino, all the land,
these are such poor countries, too, countries that are in need. And in many instances, it might be hard for the people on the ground to rationalize not receiving Chinese welfare in a real sense.
Absolutely. And in a way, that's what it sounds like. It's like Chinese welfare. Because some of these small countries are very poor, you know, resource-wise. And since they are poor resource-wise, they don't have anybody paying attention to those areas, because most countries will see them as parasites instead of, you know, a place to go make investments, a place say, hey, take some money so you can survive. So under that circumstance, it's a breeding ground, you know, for China to really
Chinese expansion, really, and stronger there than perhaps any other place in the world, because you're dealing with a large number of poverty-stricken nations, people who don't have that much commitment to the government anyway, because the government is not doing anything, no resources, no buildings or anything, no infrastructure or whatever, and they are providing. And I think you indicated earlier what the Chinese did in Africa in terms of building a railroad between countries and et cetera, and it's very easily to connect all of those together.
That's correct. That's correct. And that's one thing I worry about. Their creeping investments in the Caribbean is that slowly but steadily, the more they import workers and all that, it might gradually become a Chineseism.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Dr. Madu, over the last couple of minutes, what has the United States done in reference to the idea of this perhaps happening? We've had the Monroe Doctrine and all those things and et cetera, but now China's right there. What do we do about it now? Simply allow that to continue to?
Yeah, and that's what's ironic about the whole thing. We seem not to be worried about Chinese economic encroachment in the Caribbean, since we are not giving them that money now anyway to begin with. So we can't complain because they need the money. But at the same time, it's not seen as a military threat to the United States to trigger the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, so as far as China is giving them money and not, bringing their ships and planes to be based in one of those countries, the American government is okay with it. And moreover, we owe China anyway. Okay, we owe China billions of dollars.
You're right.
So, and that's what's funny about the whole thing. China is still a communist country, the largest communist country in the world. We deal with them, but we can't deal with the Cuba next door to Florida.
Well, we're going to have to start doing something in the Caribbean in a real sense. I think that when people talk about cutting back in terms of financial support and et cetera, some of the money that might have gone in the Middle East ought to be directed perhaps in terms of the national interest perhaps that we might have. And of course, Dr. Madu, let me thank you for that information. And I know this is not all that you have in reference to this, and we're going to have you back again to elaborate upon some of these things. But I think that what you've said now has really been an eye-opener for a large number of people who have simply taken when we see on the television these large casinos and et cetera in South America, we now know that it is probably financed by China with an ulterior motive of their own. And of course, we thank you for listening.